The familiar drone of Professor Davies's lecture on American modernism usually lulled me into a comfortable state of intellectual engagement, punctuated by the rhythmic click of my pen against my notebook. It was a Tuesday, late autumn, and the air in the lecture hall held that particular crispness that hinted at impending winter. Pamela, had settled into my usual spot near the window, enjoying the muted light filtering through the stained glass panes, a comforting ritual in my otherwise bustling college life. My world at 20 was a vibrant canvas of late-night study sessions, hurried coffee runs, and the easy camaraderie of friends. I thrived on the energy, the constant hum of possibility that college life offered. Then she walked in. The door creaked open, just a fraction, and a whisper seemed to ripple through the room, though no one actually spoke. She moved with a quiet elegance, a stark contrast to the usual hurried entrances and clattering book bags. My gaze, almost involuntarily, snagged on her. She had dark, lustrous hair, the kind that caught the light and seemed to hold it, pulled back simply to frame a face of breathtaking, almost ethereal, beauty. Her skin was porcelain smooth, and her eyes, dark and intelligent, held a hint of something ancient, a quiet depth that immediately intrigued me. She wasn't loud or flashy. Her presence was like a soft hum, drawing attention without demanding it. There was a delicate curve to her lips, unsmiling at the moment, but hinting at a hidden warmth. She wore a simple, well-fitting sweater in a muted shade and a pair of dark trousers, an outfit that spoke of understated grace. She moved towards the back row, her movements precise, almost balletic, and sat down in an empty seat, her hands clasped loosely in her lap. She didn't look around, didn't make eye contact. She simply settled, a solitary figure amidst the usual flurry of activity. She was clearly new, an unfamiliar face in a class where everyone else was a seasoned veteran of Professor Davies's eloquent ramblings. My pen had stilled, my notes forgotten. A strange, unfamiliar pull settled in my chest. It wasn't the usual flicker of admiration I might feel for someone attractive. This was deeper, a slow burn of curiosity mingled with something indefinable. There was a story in her quietude, an intriguing enigma I suddenly, inexplicably, wanted to unravel. The lecture resumed, but my focus had irrevocably shifted. I found myself stealing glances at her, trying to decipher the subtle nuances of her expression as she listened intently, occasionally jotting down a note with a delicate hand. There was an earnestness about her, a quiet dedication that was both admirable and, for some reason, deeply captivating. When the lecture finally concluded, the usual cacophony erupted. Chairs scraped, bags zipped, and voices mingled in a rush for freedom. She, however, remained seated for a moment longer, gathering her things with the same measured pace she had entered. As she finally rose, a hint of uncertainty in her posture, I knew I couldn't just let her slip away. It was more than just a desire to be helpful. There was a distinct, almost magnetic, pull drawing me toward her. It was a feeling I hadn't anticipated, a new chord struck in the symphony of my senses. I had to talk to her. I had to know who she was. "Hey," I began, my voice a little louder than I intended, but softened by a smile. She turned, those dark, intelligent eyes meeting mine, and I felt a small jolt. They held a fleeting look of surprise, quickly replaced by polite neutrality. "I haven't seen you in this class before. Are you new?" She nodded, a faint blush rising on her cheeks.
"Yes."
"I just transferred. My name is Kelly." Her voice was soft, with a subtle, lilting accent, a melody that was both unfamiliar and strangely inviting. "Pamela," I offered, extending a hand. Her touch was brief, delicate, but it sent a curious warmth through my palm. "Welcome. Professor Davies can be a lot at first. If you need any notes or anything to catch up, I'd be happy to share. I've been in his classes for a while." A flicker of genuine gratitude crossed her face, softening the polite reserve. "That's very kind of you, Pamela. Thank you." Her English was impeccable, though the cadence was distinctly different from mine. "No problem," I said a little too quickly, a small laugh escaping my lips. It can be tough coming into a new environment, especially a place like this. I gestured vaguely around the emptying hall. Where are you from? China, she replied, her gaze briefly dropping to her hands. Wow, I said, genuinely impressed. That's quite a journey. Well, if you need anything at all, seriously, just ask. Or, if you want to grab coffee sometime, I can show you around a bit. My offer felt natural, yet beneath it, I recognized a subtle eagerness, a desire to prolong this unexpected connection. It wasn't just about being friendly anymore. It was about the intriguing depths in her eyes, the quiet strength in her demeanor, and the strange, compelling allure that had unexpectedly entered my carefully constructed world. I wanted to peel back the layers of her reserve, to uncover the person beneath the poised exterior. And a part of me, a part one hadn't known existed until this very moment, was intensely curious about where this newfound fascination would lead. My offer of help quickly morphed into a steady routine. Kelly, as it turned out, was incredibly bright, her English proficiency far exceeding what her initial shyness might have suggested. Still, the nuances of American academic writing and the speed of our classroom discussions sometimes tripped her up. So, our study sessions began. We started in the bustling main library, surrounded by the hushed rustle of turning pages and the quiet clatter of keyboards. I'd explain complex literary theories, dissecting Professor Davies's often abstract concepts, while she would listen intently, her brow furrowed in concentration, occasionally asking a question that showed a remarkable depth of understanding. I found myself increasingly drawn to the quiet rhythm of our interactions. There was a particular elegance in the way Kelly held her pen, the delicate curve of her fingers as she highlighted a passage. Her concentration was absolute, a quiet intensity that was both captivating and a little intimidating. Yet, beneath that serious academic demeanor, I started to glimpse flashes of a gentle humor, a soft smile that would bloom unexpectedly when I made a particularly dry joke about our textbook's prose. As the weeks turned, our study sessions naturally expanded beyond the library's hushed confines. We'd grab lunch at the campus dining hall, the fluorescent lights and clatter of trays a stark contrast to the quiet intimacy that began to form between us. Kelly started to share glimpses of her life back in China. She spoke of bustling cityscapes, ancient traditions, and a close-knit family she missed dearly. Her stories painted vivid pictures, the scent of street food, the vibrant colors of festivals, the quiet wisdom of her grandparents. I, in turn, found myself opening up more than I usually would, sharing anecdotes about my boisterous family, my slightly chaotic childhood, and the dreams I harbored of becoming a writer, a secret ambition I rarely voiced aloud. One afternoon, as we were poring over a particularly dense chapter on postmodernism, I noticed a stray strand of her dark hair had fallen across her cheek. Without thinking, I reached out, my fingers brushing lightly against her skin as I tucked the strand behind her ear. It was a fleeting touch, barely there, but a sudden current seemed to pass between us, an almost imperceptible hum in the air. Kelly's eyes, usually so composed, widened slightly, and a faint blush rose to her cheeks. My own breath hitched, a strange warmth spreading through me. I quickly pulled my hand back, mumbling something about the light, but the moment lingered, a silent tremor. The flotation, initially unconscious, began to take on a subtle, almost playful edge from my side. I'd prolong eye contact a little longer than strictly necessary, letting my gaze trace the delicate curve of her jaw or the graceful line of her neck. When she made a particularly insightful comment, I'd lean in slightly, my voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper as I praised her intelligence, occasionally letting my hand rest for a moment on her arm. I'd find myself complimenting her, not just on her intellect, but on the quiet beauty of her presence. "That color really suits you, Kelly," I might say, noticing a subtle shift in her expression. Or, "You have a way of seeing things that's really unique, you know?" Kelly, in her reserved way, started to respond to these cues. Her smiles became a little less guarded, a little more frequent. I noticed her gaze lingering on me too, occasionally, when she thought I wasn't looking. There was a new softness in her eyes, a subtle warmth that had replaced the initial distance. One day, during a coffee break, I playfully teased her about her meticulous note-taking, mimicking her focused expression. She actually laughed, a soft, melodic sound that surprised us both, and lightly pushed my arm. It was a small gesture, but for me, it felt like a significant shift, a quiet breaking of the ice. Beneath her polite composure, I sensed a subtle shift in Kelly's own internal landscape. I saw it in the way her eyes would brighten when I approached, in the slight, almost imperceptible tilt of her head when I spoke. I noticed her hands, usually clasped, would sometimes fidget when our knees brushed under the table, or when I leaned in to point something out on her laptop screen. She would attribute these unfamiliar feelings to the comfort of friendship, to the novelty of a new connection in a foreign land. But I saw the way her breath would sometimes catch, the way her eyes would hold mine for a beat too long before gently looking away. I saw the quiet awakening of something new within her, a mirroring of the burgeoning fascination that had taken root within me. It was a delicate dance, a slow, careful unfolding, and I found myself increasingly intrigued by the unwritten chapters between us. The subtle shifts in our dynamic became more pronounced as the semester wore on. Our friendship had solidified into something profound and comforting, a quiet haven amidst the often frenzied pace of university life. We no longer just studied. We explored campus together, discovered hidden cafes, and even attended a few of the more obscure film screenings the university offered, always finding ourselves tucked away in a corner, sharing whispered comments and quiet laughter. Pamela's playful teasing and physical closeness, which had started so subtly, were now an almost constant presence. Her hand would linger on my back as we navigated crowded hallways, a comforting warmth that sent a curious shiver through me. During intense discussions, her fingers would occasionally brush mine as she gestured, or her arm would briefly press against mine, a fleeting contact that left a strange, lingering heat. These were small things, easily dismissed as gestures of close friendship, yet for me, Kelly, they began to feel like electric currents, awakening senses I hadn't known I possessed. My internal landscape, once so calm and ordered, was becoming a swirling mix of unfamiliar emotions. I found myself anticipating Pamela's touch, longing for the warmth of her presence, and feeling an inexplicable pang of disappointment when she was not near. My thoughts, once solely focused on academics and the comfort of my routines, were now frequently interrupted by flashes of Pamela's infectious smile, the way her eyes crinkled when she laughed, or the unexpected intensity of her gaze. One particularly grueling evening, as a major literature paper loomed, I felt the familiar ache of homesickness coupled with the crushing weight of academic pressure. The words blurred on the page, and a wave of exhaustion washed over me. I sighed, a small, involuntary sound of despair. Pamela, who had been quietly working beside me in the nearly deserted library, looked up, her expression softening with concern. "Everything all right, Kelly?" she asked, her voice gentle. I hesitated, my carefully constructed composure threatening to unravel. "Just tired," I admitted, my voice barely a whisper. "And it's all so much sometimes. The distance, the expectations." My gaze dropped to my hands, suddenly feeling childishly vulnerable. Without a word, Pamela shifted her chair closer. Her hand reached out, not to my arm or shoulder as before, but gently, tentatively, to rest on my clenched fist. Her fingers, warm and reassuring, slowly unfolded mine, and she held my hand, her thumb moving lightly over my knuckles. It was a simple gesture, yet it felt monumental, a profound offering of comfort. The warmth of her touch spread through me, calming the frantic beat of my heart, melting away some of the icy loneliness. I looked up, meeting her gaze, and saw not just concern, but an unspoken understanding, a deep well of empathy that surprised me. In that moment, the sterile library faded away, and it felt as though we were the only two people in the world. The connection was palpable, a silent current flowing between our clasped hands. As the weeks continued, Pamela's flirtation became more pronounced, more intentional, though still subtly woven into the fabric of our interactions. She'd lean in close when we were talking, her breath warm against my ear, her voice a low murmur that sent shivers down my spine. Her eyes, usually so bright and open, would sometimes darken, lingering on my lips for a fraction of a second longer than was strictly platonic. I felt it, a silent invitation, a charged atmosphere whenever we were alone. My heart would pound, a frantic drum against my ribs, and my palms would grow damp. This was more than friendship. I knew it now, deep in the unfamiliar territory of my soul. One crisp afternoon, we were sitting on a bench by the quad, the autumn leaves a riot of color around us. We had been discussing a particularly romantic poem, and Pamela's voice, rich and expressive, had brought the verses to life. As she finished reading, her eyes met mine, a soft, knowing look in them. She slowly reached out, her fingers gently brushing a stray hair from my cheek. Her touch was featherlight, yet it ignited a fire within me, a bewildering mix of fear and fervent longing. Her gaze then dropped, settling on my lips, warm and intense, holding me captive. Time seemed to slow, the sounds of the bustling campus fading into a distant hum. Her eyes were asking a question, a silent, potent inquiry that hung in the air between us. My breath hitched, a silent battle raging within me. Every fiber of my being yearned to lean in, to close the minuscule distance that separated us. Yet, a lifetime of cultural expectations, of unspoken rules, held me rooted. I swallowed, my throat suddenly dry, my gaze locked with hers. It was a precipice, and I stood teetering on the edge, terrified and utterly, inexplicably fascinated by the depth of emotion reflected in Pamela's beautiful eyes. The air crackled with unspoken feelings, a powerful undercurrent pulling me in. The moment stretched, suspended in the crisp autumn air. Pamela's eyes, fixed on mine, held a question, a silent invitation that both thrilled and terrified me. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic bird trapped in a cage. I could feel the warmth radiating from her hand, still lingering near my face, an electric current that made my skin tingle. Every instinct screamed to lean in, to close the small distance between us, to finally surrender to the burgeoning feelings that had taken root in my soul. Yet, something held me back, a lifetime of unspoken rules, cultural expectations, and a profound fear of the unknown. I finally managed to tear my gaze from her lips, my eyes darting frantically around the quad, as if seeking an escape from the intensity of the moment. My breath caught in my throat, a silent battle raging within me. The campus, usually a source of comfort, suddenly felt too open, too exposed. Pamela, sensing my sudden retreat, slowly withdrew her hand, a subtle shift in her expression, a flicker of something unreadable in her eyes. The charged atmosphere, which had been so palpable just moments before, thinned, leaving behind a lingering awkwardness, a quiet tension that hummed between us. The days that followed were a peculiar dance of closeness and distance. The easy rhythm of our friendship had been disrupted, replaced by a subtle unease. We still met for study, still shared meals, but the effortless flow of our conversations was now punctuated by pregnant pauses. My own internal landscape had become a storm of conflicting emotions. I longed for Pamela's touch, for the warmth of her presence, for the reassurance of her smile. Yet, I was terrified by the implications of those feelings. These emotions were new, foreign, challenging everything I had ever understood about myself and my place in the world. I found myself replaying that moment on the bench over and over, dissecting every glance, every gesture, questioning my own reaction. Why had I pulled away? Was it fear, shame, or simply a profound sense of confusion? Pamela, for her part, seemed to retreat slightly, her usual effervescence muted. She still offered help with my studies, still ensured I was comfortable, but the playful touches and lingering gazes became less frequent, replaced by a quiet thoughtfulness. I saw her observing me, a subtle intensity in her eyes, as if she was trying to decipher the unspoken turmoil within me. This quiet observation, however, only amplified my own awareness of her. I found myself watching her too, captivated by her strength, her kindness, and the way her presence filled a space I hadn't known was empty. One evening, as we were working on a particularly challenging essay in a quiet corner of the student union, Pamela broke the tense silence that had settled between us. She had been explaining a concept, her voice low and steady. When she paused, her gaze lifting to meet mine. "Kelly," she began, her voice soft, "are you all right? You seem distant." My heart gave a lurch. I knew I couldn't articulate the swirling confusion within me. How could I explain the sudden, overwhelming longing for her, mixed with the deeply ingrained fear of straying from a path I had always assumed was mine? "I'm fine, Pamela," I murmured, my gaze dropping to my notes. It was a lie, and the word felt heavy on my tongue. She didn't press, but I felt her eyes linger on me. Then, she shifted closer, her arm gently brushing mine as she leaned over to point to a passage in my textbook. "Sometimes," she said, her voice barely a whisper, "it's okay not to be fine. And it's okay to feel things you didn't expect to feel." Her fingers, warm and gentle, momentarily rested on the back of my hand, a deliberate, tender touch that sent a jolt through me. Her gaze, when I finally dared to meet it, was warm, inviting, yet held no judgment, only in profound understanding. My breath hitched. In that moment, the subtle connection, the unspoken longing, became undeniable. I saw it in the depth of her eyes, felt it in the warmth of her touch. It wasn't just friendship anymore. It was something potent and beautiful, something that was slowly, inexorably, pulling me under its spell. The cultural taboos, the fear of the unknown, still gnawed at me, but a new, powerful current of feeling had joined the fray. I was confused, yes, but I was also undeniably, profoundly captivated. And as her fingers lingered on my hand, a silent question in her eyes, I knew I was standing on the edge of a precipice, and a part of me, a part one was only just discovering, desperately wanted to jump. The silence that followed Pamela's words, "It's okay to feel things you didn't expect to feel," was heavier than any spoken confession. It hung in the air, thick with unspoken meaning, amplifying the frantic beat of my heart. Her hand, still resting gently on mine, was a conduit for a warmth that permeated my entire being, settling deep in my chest. I finally met her gaze, and in her eyes, I saw a depth of understanding that stripped away my carefully constructed defenses. It was as if she could see the swirling chaos within me, the fear battling with an undeniable, growing longing. I wanted to speak, to articulate the whirlwind of emotions, but my throat felt tight. Words caught somewhere between my mind and my lips. The truth, raw and frightening, was that I wasn't fine, and I was feeling things I never, ever expected to feel for another woman, especially not for a friend, and especially not for Pamela. The intensity of it all was overwhelming, pushing against the boundaries of everything I had ever known about myself. Pamela, sensing my struggle, slowly withdrew her hand, though her eyes remained locked on mine, a silent reassurance in their depths. "We don't have to talk about it right now," she said, her voice soft, barely above a whisper. "But I wanted you to know that I'm here, for whatever you're going through." She offered a small, gentle smile, a warmth that reached beyond the surface, touching a hidden part of my soul. The awkwardness of the near moment on the quad had left a lingering residue, a silent chasm between us that, paradoxically, made me crave her presence even more. My nights were filled with restless thoughts, replaying every shared glance, every lingering touch. I saw Pamela everywhere, in every quiet corner of campus, in every passing face. Her absence, even for a few hours, left an unfamiliar ache. A few evenings later, Pamela suggested a walk. It was late, the campus mostly deserted, cloaked in the soft, ethereal glow of lamplight. The air was cool, carrying the scent of damp earth and fallen leaves. We walked in comfortable silence for a while, the rhythmic crunch of our footsteps on the gravel path the only sound. My heart pounded with a mixture of anticipation and dread. I knew, instinctively, that this walk was different. We reached a secluded garden on campus, a quiet space surrounded by towering oak trees, their branches bare against the moonlit sky. We sat on a stone bench, the chill seeping through my jeans, but I barely noticed. My gaze was fixed on Pamela, her profile silhouetted against the soft glow of a distant lamppost. She turned to me, her eyes serious, yet still filled with that profound understanding. "Kelly," she began, her voice a low murmur, "I need to be honest with you about how I feel." My breath hitched, a shiver running through me. This was it. The moment I had both longed for and feared. "Ever since you came here," she continued, her voice gaining a quiet intensity, "I've been drawn to you. More than just a friend. It's the way you see the world, your quiet strength, your intelligence, and your beauty. All of it. I find myself thinking about you constantly, wanting to be near you." She paused, taking a breath. "I know this might be confusing or unexpected, and I understand if you don't feel the same way. But I couldn't keep it to myself anymore. I have feelings for you, Kelly. Deep feelings." Her words hung in the air, a profound confession that resonated deep within me. It was as if she had given voice to the tempest raging in my own heart. A wave of emotions washed over me, relief that my own chaotic feelings weren't unrequited, fear of what this meant for my carefully ordered life, and an overwhelming, undeniable rush of pure, unadulterated longing. My vision blurred, tears pricking at my eyes. "Pamela," I managed, my voice a whisper, barely audible. The words caught, tangled in my throat. I looked away, my mind reeling, a rapid-fire succession of images and thoughts flashing through my head. My family's expectations, the cultural norms I had always adhered to, the fear of the unknown. And yet, beneath it all, was the undeniable truth of my own feelings. The way my heart leaped whenever she was near, the comfort I found in her presence, the exquisite weight of wanting her closeness. I turned back to her, my eyes brimming. I feel something too, Pamela. I admitted, the words spilling out, hesitant but sincere. It's confusing.
And frightening.
I've never felt this way before. It's a connection I don't understand, but I feel it so strongly. My voice trembled, vulnerability exposed. I think I feel it for you. The relief that washed over Pamela was almost palpable. Her expression softened, a radiant warmth spreading across her face. She reached out, her hand gently covering mine, a silent affirmation of our shared, unspoken truth. In the quiet solitude of that garden, under the watchful gaze of the moon, our hearts laid bare, we finally acknowledged the profound, unexpected connection that had irrevocably altered the course of our lives. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with challenges, but in that moment, the terrifying beauty of our shared confession overshadowed all fear. My admission, whispered under the pale moonlight, seemed to unlock something between us. The air, which had been thick with unspoken tension, now vibrated with a fragile, new energy. Pamela's hand, warm and firm over mine, was a silent anchor in the swirling chaos of my emotions. The fear still lingered, a faint echo in the back of my mind, but it was now overshadowed by a profound sense of relief and an undeniable current of hope. "Kelly," Pamela murmured, her voice laced with a tenderness that sent shivers down my spine. She squeezed my hand gently. "Thank you for telling me. I know how hard that must have been." Her eyes, luminous in the dim light, held a deep well of understanding, reinforcing the unspoken promise of acceptance. We stayed there for a long time, not speaking, just existing in the shared space of our vulnerability. The campus around us was utterly quiet, as if the world held its breath for our unfolding story. This wasn't just about confessing feelings. It was about navigating a new, uncharted territory of emotion, one that defied easy categorization and challenged deeply ingrained expectations. Over the next few days, our interactions shifted, becoming more intimate, more layered. We talked, truly talked, about the confusion, the fear, and the intense pull we felt towards each other. Pamela was incredibly patient, listening without judgment as I grappled with the implications of these new feelings. I spoke of my cultural upbringing, the traditional path always laid out for me, the silent expectations of my family. She listened, her gaze steady, her hand often finding mine, offering a silent reassurance. She never pressured me, never made me feel rushed, but gently, consistently, affirmed the validity of my emotions. "It's okay to explore who you are, Kelly," she would say, her voice soft but firm. "It's okay to feel what you feel. This is about your happiness, your truth." Her words were a balm to my conflicted soul, slowly, carefully, dismantling the walls I had built around myself. Slowly, tentatively, I began to shed my inhibitions. The comfort of Pamela's presence became a sanctuary, a place where I could be truly vulnerable. I shared more of my inner world, my fears, my dreams, the quiet loneliness I had carried. Each shared secret, each moment of raw honesty, deepened our connection, weaving an intricate tapestry of trust between us. The physical longing, which had been simmering beneath the surface, grew more insistent, more undeniable. Every glance, every brush of hands, became charged with a potent energy. One rainy afternoon, we found ourselves huddled in Pamela's dorm room, the soft patter of rain against the window pane creating a cozy, intimate atmosphere. We had been studying, but the books lay forgotten, open on her desk. We were sitting on the floor, leaning against her bed, a comfortable silence settling between us. The air was thick with unspoken feelings, a palpable hum that made my skin prickle. Pamela turned to me, her eyes, usually so vibrant, now softened, dark with a deep, quiet longing. She reached out, her fingers gently tracing the line of my jaw, her thumb brushing softly against my cheek. My breath hitched, my heart hammering in my chest. I leaned into her touch, my own hand instinctively reaching for hers, intertwining our fingers. The world outside faded away, leaving only the two of us, suspended in a bubble of raw emotion. Her gaze dropped to my lips, and this time, there was no hesitation, no uncertainty in her eyes. Only a profound invitation. My own gaze mirrored hers, a silent, fervent longing that had finally found its voice. Slowly, ever so slowly, Pamela leaned in. I closed my eyes, a shiver running through me, a mix of apprehension and eager anticipation. Her lips, soft and warm, finally met mine. It was a tentative, almost hesitant kiss at first, a gentle press that was both awkward and exquisitely tender. It tasted of vulnerability, of shared secrets, and of a burgeoning hope. I felt a rush of warmth spread through my body, a blossoming sensation in my chest. I responded shyly, my own lips parting slightly, allowing the kiss to deepen, to become a soft exploration. It was clumsy, perhaps, but profoundly significant. The physical manifestation of our intertwined emotions, the unspoken language of our souls finally finding its voice. In that moment, surrounded by the quiet rhythm of the rain, I felt a connection so profound, so utterly real, that it transcended all my fears and uncertainties. This was more than just a kiss. It was an affirmation, a promise, and the beginning of a journey into an unknown, beautiful future. The first kiss, tentative and shy, had shattered the last vestiges of my resistance, opening a floodgate of emotions I hadn't known I possessed. It was clumsy, yes, but undeniably real, a physical manifestation of the profound connection that had been silently growing between Pamela and me. In the days that followed, those tentative brushes of lips blossomed into something deeper, more confident. Our kisses became more frequent, more heartfelt, a silent language of burgeoning affection that we both eagerly learned. Pamela's dorm room became our sanctuary, a world unto itself, where the rules of the outside didn't apply. The rain still pattered against the window, providing a soothing soundtrack to our explorations. We would sit on her bed or on the floor, close together, our bodies near. Her hands, once so carefully restrained, now moved gently, tracing the curve of my back, threading through my hair, softly brushing my cheek. Each touch was an exquisite discovery, sending shivers through me, igniting a warmth that spread through every fiber of my being. I, in turn, found my own hands growing bolder, exploring the strong lines of her shoulders, the soft skin of her neck, the warmth of her waist. Our closeness was a dance of vulnerability and eager affection. There was a profound tenderness in our shared moments, a quiet reverence, as we explored this new dimension of our relationship. It wasn't just physical, it was deeply emotional, a communion of souls finding solace and excitement in each other's company. We would lie together, simply holding each other, the soft murmur of our breaths filling the quiet space, the rhythmic beat of our hearts synchronized. The world outside, with its expectations and judgments, faded into insignificance. I had never imagined such closeness, such profound connection. Growing up, my understanding of relationships was defined by clear, conventional lines. Now, those lines had blurred, redrawn by the undeniable force of my feelings for Pamela. Her affection was a revelation, a soft, insistent warmth that slowly, carefully, peeled back layers of reserve I hadn't even known I possessed. I, Kelly, who had always been so reserved, so guarded, found myself blossoming under her unwavering care. I became more expressive, more confident in my feelings, my voice finding a new strength when I spoke of what I wanted, what I felt. The quiet Chinese girl was discovering a new facet of herself, one that embraced openness and vulnerability. Pamela, in nurturing me, also underwent a quiet transformation. Her initial curiosity had deepened into a profound, caring affection. She learned patience, understanding, and the quiet power of unwavering support. She listened, always, to my fears and my occasional anxieties about our unconventional path, and her steady reassurance was a constant comfort. Yet, even in our sanctuary, the outside world eventually intruded. We knew our relationship, still fresh and fragile, needed protection. We became discreet, aware of the potential judgments from peers and, more significantly, the unspoken expectations of our respective families. This shared secret, however, paradoxically strengthened our bond. It created a world just for us, a space of understanding and acceptance where our affection could flourish, away from the scrutiny of others. We learned to communicate not just with words, but with shared glances, subtle touches, and knowing smiles that spoke volumes. One evening, after a particularly warm embrace, as we lay close on her bed, the moon casting long shadows across the room, Pamela whispered, her voice husky, "I never knew affection could feel like this, Kelly." So complete. I leaned my head against her shoulder, my heart swelling with a mixture of joy and a gentle ache for the future's uncertainties. "Nor I, Pamela," I murmured back, my voice thick with emotion. You have changed everything for me." I threaded my fingers through hers, the quiet strength of our clasped hands a testament to the profound, unforeseen journey we had embarked upon together. We had embraced the unforeseen, stepping boldly into an affection that defied expectations, finding comfort and strength in each other's company. And in that moment, in the soft glow of the moon, I knew, with a certainty that reached into the deepest parts of my soul, that I had found my true home. The final semester of college unfolded with a bittersweet quality, each passing day a reminder of the impending transition. The excitement of graduation mingled with the quiet apprehension of an uncertain future. Pamela and I had become an inseparable unit, our bond deepening with every shared laugh, every late-night conversation, every stolen moment of closeness. Our affection, nurtured in the quiet corners of campus and the safe haven of Pamela's dorm room, had become the most profound and defining aspect of my time here. We walked across the graduation stage under a bright spring sky, the cheers of the crowd a joyful din. I saw Pamela in the sea of caps and gowns, her smile radiant as she accepted her diploma, and a wave of pride swelled within me. Moments later, she was cheering just as loudly for me, her eyes meeting mine across the distance, a silent promise in their depths. The ceremony itself was a blur of speeches and congratulations, but the most significant part for me was the shared glance with Pamela, a silent acknowledgement of the journey we had embarked upon together, one far more impactful than any academic achievement. After the ceremony, amidst the joyous chaos of family and friends, Pamela's hand found mine, a brief, reassuring squeeze. Her parents, warm and welcoming, embraced me, completely unaware of the intricate tapestry of emotions that bound their daughter and me. My own parents, watching from thousands of miles away through video calls, were filled with pride, their voices echoing expectations of a successful career and a return home. The weight of these expectations, once a distant hum, now felt closer, more tangible. Later that evening, as the campus began to empty, we found ourselves back in our usual spot, the quiet garden where Pamela had first confessed her feelings. The air was cool, carrying the scent of blooming flowers, a stark contrast to the autumn leaves of months past. We sat close on the stone bench, our hands clasped, the silence between us heavy with unspoken questions. "So," Pamela began, her voice soft, her gaze fixed on the distant campus lights, "the real world, huh?" A wry smile touched her lips, but her eyes held a hint of worry. I leaned my head against her shoulder, savoring the familiar comfort of her presence. "Yes," I murmured, the word feeling both exhilarating and daunting. "The real world." The conversation we both knew was inevitable began to unfold. Kelly's post-graduation plans were clear: a prestigious job offer in Shanghai, a path meticulously laid out by my family, a return to the roots I had temporarily left behind. Pamela, with her dreams of writing, was considering various opportunities, but all of them firmly rooted in the United States. The geographical distance that now loomed between us felt immense, a daunting chasm. "I have to go back, Pamela," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, the words catching in my throat. "My family, they expect it. My future is there." It wasn't just an expectation, it was a deeply ingrained sense of duty, a cultural imperative that felt impossible to defy. Pamela squeezed my hand, her thumb moving over my knuckles. "I know, Kelly," she said, her voice filled with a quiet understanding that didn't diminish the sadness. "And I understand." Her gaze drifted to the stars, a profound sorrow etched on her face. "But what about us? What does that mean for us?" My heart ached, a sharp, piercing pain. This affection, so unexpected, so vital, had become an intrinsic part of who I was. The thought of a future without Pamela, without her warmth, her laughter, her understanding, felt unbearable. "I don't know," I confessed, the words tasting like ash. But I don't want to lose you, Pamela. Not after everything." She turned to me then, her eyes shining with unshed tears, but also with an unwavering resolve. "You won't lose me, Kelly," she promised, her voice firm. She pulled me closer, wrapping her arms around me, holding me tight. "We've found something so incredibly special. We'll find a way. We have to." We talked late into the night, making quiet vows, promises whispered under the vast, indifferent sky. We spoke of video calls, of planned visits, of a future where the miles wouldn't matter, where our affection would transcend borders. It was a fragile plan, built on hope and the sheer force of our mutual devotion, but in that moment, in her arms, it felt like the only truth. Our affection had been born in an unexpected connection, nurtured by vulnerability, and now faced its biggest challenge. As the last embers of our college life faded, a new chapter, fraught with uncertainty but bound by an unbreakable bond, lay before us. The future was unknown, but our commitment, forged in the quiet fire of our shared hearts, felt like an enduring beacon. We would carry our affection, a precious, whispered secret, into the vast, complicated world, ready to face whatever lay ahead, together. The years that followed graduation were a testament to the quiet strength of our affection. The initial separation was brutal. The miles between Shanghai and the bustling American city where Pamela began her career felt vast and unforgiving. Nights were filled with the glow of screens, our faces illuminated by video calls that bridged continents and time zones. We navigated missed calls, poor connections, and the emotional toll of living separate lives, clinging to the fragments of shared moments. My prestigious job, while fulfilling in its own way, often felt hollow without Pamela's warmth. And Pamela, as she established herself in her writing career, poured her longing into her words, each story a subtle homage to the woman who held her heart across an ocean. There were moments of doubt, whispered fears in the dead of night that our affection, born in the sheltered bubble of college, could not withstand the pressures of the real world. My family, observing my dedication to work, gently began to broach the topic of marriage, of finding a suitable partner, conversations I deflected with practiced grace, a polite smile masking the deep, personal truth I carried. Pamela, too, faced the casual assumptions of friends and colleagues about her dating life, each question a subtle reminder of the path she had chosen. But through it all, our connection endured. It was in the thoughtful care packages Pamela sent, filled with quirky American candies and handwritten letters that spilled her heart onto the page. It was in the way I, Kelly, would recount the intricate details of my day, knowing she would listen with an understanding no one else possessed. We celebrated each other's successes, comforted each other through setbacks, and, most importantly, held on to the shared dream of a future where distance would no longer be a barrier. The visits, though infrequent, were bursts of pure joy, frantic days packed with rediscovered closeness and unspoken affection. Our reunions were always a blend of awkward reacquaintance and instant familiarity, the kind that only two souls deeply intertwined can experience. The physical distance would melt away in the first embrace, in the first shared touch, confirming that the bond we had kindled years ago still burned bright, perhaps even stronger for the challenges it had faced. In those precious weeks, we would retreat into our own world, exploring new cities or simply finding solace in each other's presence, our hearts reconnecting with a profound, almost spiritual, intensity. Our closeness was no longer tentative. It was a deep, knowing communion, a celebration of our enduring bond. Years turned into a decade. My career had flourished, allowing me a certain independence and the ability to make my own choices. Pamela's writing had gained recognition, her voice clear and strong. The seeds of change, planted in our college years, had finally come to fruition. Kelly, once the reserved Chinese student, had found her authentic voice, confident in her identity and in the affection she shared. She embraced her vulnerability not as a weakness, but as a source of profound strength, a lesson learned from Pamela. And Pamela, through the journey of caring for and nurturing Kelly, had discovered a depth of patience and unwavering devotion within herself, her initial curiosity evolving into a profound and comforting force. One quiet evening, now in our shared apartment overlooking the city skyline, the scent of dinner wafting from the kitchen, I watched Pamela as she read, her brow furrowed in concentration. Her hair, still lustrous, was now threaded with a few silver strands, a testament to the passage of time. I felt a profound sense of peace settle over me, a quiet contentment that reached into the deepest parts of my soul. I walked over to her, gently taking the book from her hands and placing it on the table. She looked up, her eyes, still as captivating as the day I first saw them, filled with a soft warmth. I leaned down, kissing her softly, a gesture of deep affection and familiar comfort. "What was that for?" she murmured, a gentle smile gracing her lips. "Just because," I replied, my voice thick with emotion. I sat beside her, taking her hand in mine, intertwining our fingers, a gesture that had become second nature. "We made it, Pamela." She squeezed my hand, her gaze meeting mine, a silent conversation passing between us. We did, she agreed, her voice a whisper. We always knew we would, didn't we? Our journey, once fraught with internal conflict and external obstacles, had settled into a deep, abiding affection that transcended expectations. It wasn't always easy, but the challenges had only served to forge our bond into something unbreakable. The comfort I found in Pamela's affection was profound, repairing unseen wounds and allowing me to truly embrace who I was. And for Pamela, our shared life was a constant source of inspiration, a story of connection she lived every day. The city lights twinkled outside our window, a shimmering tapestry against the night sky. I rested my head on her shoulder, feeling the familiar rhythm of her breathing, the warmth of her presence. In that moment, I knew that our affection was not just a story of unexpected connection, but of enduring resilience, a testament to the transformative power of acceptance and the quiet, unwavering strength of two hearts that chose to beat as one. This was our forever, a peaceful, vibrant testament to an affection that was truly, unforeseen and utterly, beautifully real.